Good morning. I'm calling to order this meeting of the Easthampton Commission on Disability for June 4th, 2019. Okay. First on the agenda is ECAT. I'm not sure everybody was here when I handed out the address. Did you get one of these?
You did not.
Okay, this is this last month's agenda, but
Okay.
that's the ECAP address,
Okay.
the YouTube address for ECAP when we
Thank you.
have these things on file
Got it.
to look at. So as of, well, we're recording today, but I was told that they only pick up twice a week from the building.
Okay.
So it may not be available for a couple of days depending on the bill. We're gonna skip the community survey update for the moment. The Easthampton Neighbors Group, which Alita and I had attended a few of their meetings to see if there was some way that what they're doing, which is trying to find people who are willing to volunteer to help disabled people remain in their homes by doing chores, changing light bulbs is one that they frequently use. That this stems from the snowstorm over the winter where you and Alita got people from the community to help you with removing your snow.
Right.
So because of incidents like that, we assume that you're not the only people in the community that can use assistance for these things. So we heard that the Council on Aging was sponsoring, not really sponsoring, but being part of this Easthampton Neighbors thing, which is being modeled after Northampton. Our attempt at going to the meetings was to find out if they would include disabled members of the community among, because what they want to do is have it solely for people over 55.
Right.
After attending a couple of meetings, it's clear that that is exactly what they intended on doing. And if at some point in the future, they may add people on disabilities, I don't know why they don't just do that from the start.
Right.
But because of that, I am not going to spend time helping them get it up and running because I don't have time to if it's not going to help this commission.
Right.
And I know that in some ways that seems petty on my part, but honestly, if it were going to benefit the disabled community, I'd help them work on it. If it's not going to benefit the disabled community, I'm going to put my efforts to something that this commission tries to get going.
Right.
Well, that's very disappointing. And
It is.
yeah, and I mean, I would be uncomfortable like working in something that's exclusionary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and for that reason, I'm not going to participate any further. I sent, after Jeff saw it, a letter to Kevin Perrier, who owns Parsons Place,
Okay.
because Kathy let us know that there's almost a continuous process of violation of their handicap parking.
In Parsons Closet or?
Parsons
No.
Place, it's the old Parsons Street School that was
Oh.
converted to apartments.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
new, yeah.
So they have 3 handicap spaces that everybody and anybody just parks in when they're empty. So have you heard anything on that? Did he send a notice? My letter specifically asked if he would send a notice to the tenants to let them know that it's a violation.
No,
That didn't happen.
nothing. And in fact, the markings, they just painted the symbol on the
Right.
street, or not the street, but the parking
Pavement,
surface. And they don't have a sign.
Well,
But it's worn off. So anybody, but there is one spot that's striped, which everybody should know means
You don't
that's
park
for
there, yeah.
van.
Fans, yeah.
And people park on the stripe sometimes, or right next to it.
okay.
So, and no, nobody has said anything. I mean,
Okay.
we did get a nice email about smoking. Please don't smoke in the building. We've had complaints about that.
Right.
Okay, well,
I think it's time for me as a tenant to do something. In fact, I have, what I do is I don't, I'm not I don't stand there and watch all the time.
Right.
But my computer is in front of the window which overlooks the spot. And I sometimes see them parked out there, and when I do, I write a note and put it under the windshield. Under the wiper. And just saying, you may not be aware that you are parked in a spot reserved, et cetera, et cetera. And I did actually see during the bad weather, when there was snow, when those spots are really popular, somebody moved the car.
Well, good.
But that's the only time I ever saw it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. But.
And so they don't actually have the sign in front of the parking spaces, which is required.
Oh, it is?
It is,
Oh,
it's required.
Okay. Well, that's a good
There
to
has to
know.
be a post in the ground with a sign mounted between 6 and 8 feet above ground level.
Okay, well.
That's a requirement.
Not a bucket.
Not necessarily, well, it can be in a bucket as long as the bucket doesn't move.
Right.
But certainly if it's in something that is movable, that's not really adequate.
So do you think people are parking there because they don't know it's reserved or because they don't care?
I think it's because they don't care. Well, at the moment, I'm assuming we don't have anyone in the building who uses a vehicle. We have one dedicated apartment specifically for handicap use, a rental. But I think people see that those spots are so often empty. But the thing is that the lot is way bigger than
Right.
than is needed. I mean, we've got 14 units in that building, and that lot is never even half full. So there's no reason for people to park there except they're lazy
Okay.
and inconsiderate.
All right, so I will look up the specific code items involving handicap parking, and I will print that out and send another letter after. I'll show it to you, I guess, beforehand.
Yeah, and I believe that the ownership is changing soon.
That, Jeff told me that,
So-
but, you know.
They are?
That doesn't,
Well, I mean, they're looking,
that doesn't
I-
mean that people don't have to be responsible.
right,
You know,
and
so,
it just means that whatever happens now with current owners might have to be
Might have to be
repeated
redone.
in a few months.
Right.
Because then the current owner might say, you know what, we're
I
not gonna
understand
get
that,
that.
but, you know, one battle at a time.
My rate will go up now. It's the first thing you think of when ownership
You know,
changes.
on the other hand, maybe finding out who the new potential owner might be and giving them a heads up about there's a violation that he might want to make sure is taken
Right.
care of before purchasing the property.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll think about that.
yeah, I mean, I don't have any.
But we will
it's
keep on it until we get some kind of, you know. And, you know, over at Cottage Square, we had the same problem. They didn't put signs up when the building opened. Actually, they didn't do squat, but after a while and a lot of complaining, they painted the little wheelchairs on the pavement, but they didn't put up signs. So as soon as there was a dusting of snow, even people that lived in the building and knew that those were all handicapped spaces parked in them.
Yeah.
You know, so we finally got them to put up signs, and it, like I said, it took a while, but, you know, we did it, so. Okay,
I'm glad that, you all are here to do things like that, because I guess it seems insignificant unless you're the one in the van.
Right.
exactly. Okay, so let's go back up to the survey and see on the first page in the what we are and
Yeah.
what we're trying to accomplish and all that. Under what we will do with the information, the bottom of that paragraph is in parentheses, because I need to find an appropriate address to put in there,
Right,
you know, that's relevant to the survey. So
right.
if we're gonna ask them to go someplace, it can't be
Can't be the
an email
UK.
address in the UK.
Could I ask why you use that particular one?
What particular?
This survey.
Why did you choose this one to use as the model, rather than using one that
You
from?
mean the Cambridge survey?
Yes.
Because after reading it, I thought the questions were pretty much the kind of information that we were looking for,
Yep.
and I thought that it could be easily adapted to suit our purposes.
Mhm.
So, I had read a couple of other ones also,
Yeah.
but they weren't anywhere near as complete as this one.
Mhm.
So I don't like reinventing the wheel every time I try to do something, so.
I
yeah.
agree, plagiarism isn't always bad.
Is everybody okay with that first page?
There are typos, I mean, is that,
Right.
and,
Not
Just-
just like,
There are typos on the first page?
like here,
yeah,
TE.
I mean, is that the kind of thing you wanted to do
Well,
now?
So, anything else on that page?
Yeah. Next to the last paragraph, if you need a break, you can save the questionnaire and return to it later.
No ED.
Uh,
And then,
Return to it.
And what are the asterisks?
Those were part of the original thing. I didn't put them there.
So when I see an asterisk, I look down to see.
I
what
understand
it's-
that.
So-
They appeared in the original document.
Yeah, I know, but why did we leave them?
I didn't take them out yet.
Okay.
I will remove them. I don't know why they used asterisks. There was nothing asterisked in that survey. It looks like they just used them as
drawing attention.
fancy stuff.
So you're using SurveyMonkey? The plan is to use SurveyMonkey, correct?
Yeah.
So the plan is to use
Yes.
SurveyMonkey?
Yes.
I don't know that SurveyMonkey has the capability to return to the survey if you close your browser.
This
Oh,
was,
Hard as
the
SurveyMonkey.
Cambridge survey was actually on SurveyMonkey.
Okay, I
So-
just,
Right.
I don't know that that's the capability, so I would just
Double check.
double check
Well, you're right,
that
yeah.
this can happen.
Right, yeah, if there's no way to go back to it, then we
Right.
will have to remove that.
Right.
But, if it's possible, we'll leave it in.
The other thing I often see in survey, like, this is like, how long we expect the survey to take to complete.
That's good,
So-
that's good. We should have somebody,
Do
Do
we
it
should,
and
we
see
should,
how
we should,
long.
have, we should, once we get it online and fill it out, I think
Yeah.
everyone on the commission should sample it and
Yes.
record
Yeah,
how
Eli
long,
and I were talking about
how
that
long it
yesterday.
takes to actually do it. Because someone who is able-bodied might find that it's a 10-minute survey, and someone who has some
Visual
disability,
handicaps or
visual handicap or something like
dexterity,
that might
right.
find that it takes 2 hours to
Right.
do. I don't know.
yeah.
And it-
So, I mean, that's why sampling it with the commission might be helpful, just to get that range.
right. Well, we also plan to do a test run before we fully deploy it also, to find like some,
Who would be the test people?
but I don't know.
Okay. Well, I would think that
Like you said, we should,
the
yeah.
commission should be the test people. Once you start to put it out there, then
Right.
you don't want to throw away responses. If someone's only going to take it once,
Right.
you know, I don't know that I think testing it's good.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is like, it'd be hard for us to be objective because we wrote the survey, so we should have people who are taking it as they would take it for real, like, so that they can find things that we wouldn't have, that we wouldn't find.
All right.
Both.
Well, the idea is out there. We know what we want to do as far as some sort of a sampling. So we can work out the details on that later. We might be able to work out details on that better after we have an idea of how SurveyMonkey works.
I just want to be clear, are we at this point offering suggestions about grammar and
Sure.
that kind of editing?
We'll
Yeah.
still take those
Okay, because in this, are you going on to page 2?
if you'd like. No,
If
page
you do.
1.
If you do.
Okay, page 2, section 1 about you.
In this first section, we want to find out the words you feel comfortable describing yourself with. First of all, there's no period, but I don't like ending the sentence
I understand.
with.
So should we change that to words with which you feel comfortable describing yourself?
Well, that's grammatically correct, is it? To.
Or do you have something else?
No.
Words
It's probably going to get vetted again once this
with
Right.
revision.
you feel comfortable
Goes through.
describing yourself. Anything else?
I assume questions 1 and 2, it's a fill in the blank. There's not a drop down.
It is.
Okay,
Um,
I agree with that. And does it make sense to also have ethnic origin as a fill in the blank rather than a drop down? And sexual orientation as a fill in the blank rather than a drop down?
Ethnic origin drops down to Asian British, Bangladeshi for one. Asian British, Chinese. They go
I
through
think
the entire
it
list.
would be best to
Could probably
just get rid of the drop down there and have it as a fill in the blank.
Feel right to my ear.
Okay.
Just because
Yeah, I think
whatever list we come up with will be incomplete.
Yeah, and you're still going to end up with an other, please specify at the bottom of it.
Exactly.
So,
And,
okay.
you know, when we're doing the analysis, you know, it might be a little bit,
So we're looking
we might have to recode some answers. But that would be more, you know, that's okay.
Okay.
And similarly with sexual orientation.
So, do we want to have a drop down on the gender identity also, or just have that one to fill in the
I
blank?
think the first 4 makes sense to have just fill in the blank,
Okay.
in my opinion, because gender is, there's a lot of different
There's a lot.
options.
Yeah,
And every survey that I've seen that has tried to list them,
they miss some.
they miss some, or they do it in a way that's offensive. And so the first question being offensive to someone is really gonna
Shut them down.
stop their,
Yeah, essentially.
so.
Yeah.
Right, and it seems like every day or two, we've got another definition or another term. And so I think you're right, it should be, let people
Yeah.
tell
Yeah.
us what.
Also, that's easier just to code it. When you put in a SurveyMonkey, a fill in the blank box is much easier than trying to come up with an exhaustive list of.
Yeah.
Right, but that means that we will have to sort them by, manually after.
Yeah, there might be
yeah.
some recoding that has to happen to make that work, but it might not. You know, most people are gonna put in, for gender, most people are gonna put in like, you know, the 2 binary answers or some
Right.
variation of like, you know, maybe people put an M or F or male or female or boy or girl, and we can easily just code those into, and
Yeah.
then,
And I would question why gender is capitalized.
Oh, good call.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Gender. Gender is capitalized.
Oh, and then number 5, disability is capitalized for no reason.
Yeah, there's that inconsistency when I read through the first one.
Right.
Any problems with number 6?
Going back to 5,
Okay.
if you select no, is there an option to skip to number 8? When you select no, 6 and 7 don't apply? So I would think,
Well-
and I think there's making a note in there that SurveyMonkey does allow, depending on the level, I believe that SurveyMonkey allows, like, if you select yes, you see this set of answers. If you select no, you go to a different set.
I see.
That's
You know,
interesting.
I'm not sure what their intent was in wording it this way. I'm thinking what they were looking for is, yes, you're disabled. No, you're not disabled, but are a care provider.
Right.
But then that's the next,
Pardon?
but that's already there. I'm a care provider.
Right.
So I think
So
that-
that's three
So,
options.
I remember now we were arguing about this question and we decided to move on. But yeah, I thought that the question, the way the question and the answers are worded was really weird.
if somebody answers no, and they're not a caregiver, why would they continue with the survey?
Yeah.
Because you asked about that. I mean, there's a lot of people who, you know, like, I'm not disabled. I can take the survey and answer. There's questions in here that ask about how accessible do I think Easthampton is? You know, and maybe that it's good to know what people without disabilities
It's true.
see.
How they perceive
You know,
accessibility
do
issues.
people perceive that
Okay.
the city's accessible or not? Because, you know, and presumably someone who's bothering to take the survey who doesn't have a disability
Must
maybe cares for someone, or not directly cares, maybe they're not a caregiver,
Right.
but they have a family member that's
Sure.
disabled.
And maybe there should be
That's
a
true.
question like that, because I'm thinking of myself. I have a disabled grandson, but I'm not his caregiver. I spend a lot of time with him, and I am interested in answering these.
That's true.
A lot of these, some of these, I wouldn't unless I feel I should answer it on his behalf, because he couldn't take the survey.
Okay, but you know, the question before us is if somebody checks no in number 5, then skip them to whatever is the next appropriate thing. But there are other things in here that pertain.
The only 2 questions that I've seen, I've only gone halfway through, the only 2 that I've seen so far that directly relate to someone, to a particular person's experience as being disabled are 6 and 7. You know, everything else, like, it doesn't, you know, and then we can figure that out later. We could have them, the set of questions that a person who answers no could be slightly different than the set of questions that someone who answers yes. And I believe that SurveyMonkey allows that.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, thinking of my own situation, if I answer number 5, no. I do have disabilities, but not what we're talking about here. And yet, so where do I go from there? And so number 6, I'm thinking I would be answering on behalf of my grandson because he can. So I guess really, and I'm sorry that I'm coming into this so late, what is the purpose of this survey? What started you on the path to do this? What do you want to know?
What we would like to know is what things people with disabilities find beneficial, what things they find challenging, such as access to businesses, rolling down the street in a wheelchair so that you don't have to get out of the way of the telephone poles, any number of things. So
we're really looking at two different groups of people. You're looking at the people who actually have the disabilities, who are able to answer these questions, because they're a lot like my grandson who wouldn't be able to. And then there are the rest of us who don't have the disability, but either have a family member or a friend, or we really care about the subject. And I'm wondering if it isn't just, maybe I'm complicating this too much?
okay.
Yeah, no, I had similar concerns.
We've thought about more than one survey at that point.
Just because the statement is, I am a care provider support worker, doesn't necessarily mean that you are a person who is paid to go to a particular individual and provide support. Anybody who has any interaction with a person with disabilities who in any way, shape, or form assists them, even if it's only for 5 minutes, can be a care provider. So you being the grandmother of a disabled person, you certainly are aware of his grandson, his particular needs and accessibility issues. So,
but when I look at that, I am a care provider support worker, that says to me somebody who's paid to do this. If you want to add, I have a family member.
okay, we can certainly slide that in there, family member of.
And then, is it helpful for me to then go on to number 6 and check the ones that apply to my grandson?
Yeah, so,
Well, but if you're checking the box that says, I'm a care provider, family member, whatever.
Okay, so
think that
really, then maybe it says, how would you describe your disability? That, maybe that could be changed to,
yeah.
Then maybe we should,
I think that this care provider option, if the person is answering for someone else, then they know they're answering for someone else. I don't think we need that option at all.
it depends on what you want to use this information for at the very end. What are you going to do with, do you care that I answered questions as though I were my grandson? As other people will? Or do you want to learn specifically from the people who have the disability what bothers them, what prohibits them from taking part?
That's what he's been saying.
part of what we were trying to do was avoid having 3 different surveys for 3 different groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
It seems, maybe I'm dense, I don't know, but it seems very clear to me that if somebody ticks that box that says, I'm a care provider, or whatever we decide else to put in there to identify who a care provider might be, then I'm going to assume that the answers from that person are given for somebody that they're providing care to.
Well, I think the fact that we're asking that explicitly makes it unclear.
I don't see how. If I don't have a disability, but I know people who have disabilities and I know some of their struggles, and I want to fill that out as a concerned citizen, then I could check no, but still fill out the answers.
But then what does that tell you? That tells you that somebody who isn't actually doesn't have a disability, doesn't have a personal, a person close to them who has one, and yet you're giving your opinions, which is fine, but how do we know that at the end? How do we use, I guess what I'm
Okay.
getting at is how do we use...
Because the information didn't come from somebody who checked the yes box, I have a disability.
How are we going to use the information that
Yeah.
comes out of this? That's what I'm looking at. Do we want to know what the actual person with the disability feels and thinks and actually is up against? Or do you want other people's
This is-
perception?
Go ahead, Jamie.
So can I think, I can hear both sides of this.
Mhm.
I think that if 5 was just yes or no,
Mhm.
if yes, you go to 6 and 7. If no, there's another question that says, why are you taking this survey? And then there's an option for, I'm a care provider, I work with someone who's disabled, I have a family member who's disabled, and then you know why they're taking the survey, and that kind of may color their responses. And then additionally, when you get to the later questions about what's your household income, if I'm a provider, if currently, number 5, if I check I'm a provider,
Mhm.
when I get to the questions about what's my household income, am I answering it for me or for the person I'm providing care for? And if I'm someone who works at, like, let's say Riverside, where I might care for a number of people, and not just one person at a time, now I'm gonna be very confused because my household income or the average of all of the people. So it might be more clear to have that question just be a yes or no, having people fill out the survey for themselves, but also knowing why the people who are saying no are filling out the survey.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, so what do we do with this question?
So I would suggest that leave it yes or no, and we'll code it in SurveyMonkey. So if yes, you get questions 6 and 7, and if no, there'll be an alternate 6 or 7 that says, why are you, basically, the point being, why are you taking this survey, or what's your connection to disability, like, why are you
interested? Why are you
feeling,
doing
why,
this?
yeah, and the options might be, I'm a care provider support worker,
They're concerned citizen.
concerned citizen, you know.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, so many of these questions are aimed directly at
Okay.
the disabled person.
Yeah. Also,
And so that makes me feel a little bit uneasy to answer when it's not aimed at me. I guess it's the wording of some of the questions that, and I don't know, maybe other people won't have all these doubts and
yeah,
questions.
no, I agree with you, Kathy.
Earlier you said you have disabilities, but you don't think that that's what this
Oh,
is
no, I
about.
meant, yeah, I was being facetious, I was just, I
Also,
don't have
let's
any of these.
Keep in mind that we will have to offer this in paper form, so we can't make the structure too complicated.
Well, it'll just say yes, go to 9,
Okay.
yes, go
Okay,
to
but
question
if-
9.
If we have people going, who answer no, going to different questions, we don't get an answer from them regarding developmental disability, learning disability, mental health issues, or any of those.
Kind.
And yet,
Right.
if that's the person that they're caring for and filling out the survey for, they miss those questions?
No, if they're
I don't-
filling out the survey for someone else, then you don't need to tell them to fill it out for someone else. They already know they're doing that.
Okay, then if they're filling it out for someone else,
Then they wouldn't say I'm a care provider. They would say like I am whatever the person they're
so
filling.
then maybe we should get rid of the question or the statement, I am a care provider or support worker, and put in a box that says, I'm filling this out for someone else.
Yeah, because, and I get back to, what are you gonna do with the information that you get from this survey when you're finished? How valid is it going to be if it's a mixture of, you know, people like me answering and the people who actually have the disabilities?
I mean, I think it should be just yes or no. I think if you're filling it out for someone else, then you know you're filling it out for someone else, and you're putting in the information that applies
Okay,
to them.
But you know what, we need to start at the beginning,
Yeah.
to ask, who are you filling this out for? Because please state your gender. Do I say female or male? How old are you? Do I put my grandson's
If
age
you
or
tick
mine?
this response, please answer as appropriate to the person in your care.
Right, but then that needs to be at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know at the beginning
Okay.
that you know I'm answering for him, and every answer pertains to him and not to me.
Okay, but since I don't know who's filling it out or for whom, that's kind of irrelevant anyway.
Well, how would I answer these first, well, how would I answer any of those
So you
first
want number-
questions about?
Well, no, I'm
Why do you
not.
want to know my sexual orientation?
I'm
number
not
5 should be
disagreeing
first.
with, we maybe need to move that statement to a different place. So that right from the get-go, before they answer question
Number
one, whoever's filling it out knows that,
Please answer on behalf of your,
So number 5 should be number 1.
Right, but also, if you're filling it out for someone else, then it wouldn't say like, then you would say like, then the question would be, are you using someone else to fill out the survey? Because the answer would be the answer for the person that you're filling it out for.
and there are people that would be perfectly capable of answering the questions, but not necessarily
Right.
able to.
It would be like, someone
Use the computer.
is helping me fill out this survey, yes, no, right,
Or you are completing the survey on behalf of. Because that's two different things. You know, you can say how you feel and what you want, but you can't use the computer. My grandson doesn't talk, and he wouldn't understand these questions. So that would be completely different information.
Yeah, that's
See
true.
what I mean?
Yes. So yeah, it's different if you're dictating answers versus if you are making, guessing what the answers would be.
Right.
Yeah, which I remember I was saying a few
Yes.
weeks ago.
so, under section 1 about you, under the second paragraph, before question 1, check here if you are completing this on behalf of someone else. I'll stick in the word survey.
And we're just above question one, you would put that?
Directly above question 1. So before the first question is asked or answered, a checkbox indicating that you are filling this out for someone else.
Okay.
Well, and right there you say we want to look at how different groups of people with a disability.
That's, we want to,
You're looking, this says we want to look at how different groups of people with a disability experience life. I experience it too, when I'm pushing him and running into snowdrifts and, all that kind of thing.
I get what you're saying.
So how different groups of people experience disability? Could we rephrase it that way?
Say that again?
That was good.
We look at how different groups of people experience disability. Does
Experience.
that sound better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
do we want to go back to page 1?
Because that would include people who don't actually have the disability.
How about if we add after that check here, if you are completing this survey on behalf of someone else?
And then just
And-
a quick fill-in of describe your relationship to that person.
Okay,
Yeah.
And again, I ask why? Why do we need that information? I'm not saying no. I'm just saying, I keep looking at the
What's the
end.
goal, yeah.
What are we going to use the information for? What's the most helpful thing that we want?
To make changes,
Okay.
hopefully.
you want
I
to take
mean,
it?
again, looking at this from trying to understand who's responding, so that way the analysis of the survey is meaningful. It's important to get the demographic data correct at the beginning. And so if we're saying, are you filling this question out, are you filling out this survey for someone other than yourself? If yes, describe your relationship to that person, gets a very different set of answers if that person is a paid caregiver versus a parent versus someone who works at Riverside who has 10 people in their care and they're filling it out generally for everyone in their care. That would be my, it may not be helpful, we may not get good data out of it, but at the minimum we'll know when we look into a specific survey, questionnaire response, why that person is filling it out or who they're filling it out for.
Yeah.
It could be that what's the relationship? I'm filling it out for my non-vocal nephew or whatever. It's
Yeah.
different than.
And it sounds like.
I'm just helping. I selected. I'm not filling this out for myself because I'm sitting next to someone who's telling me the answers.
Right.
And if that's the answer, then we know that the person who actually filled out the answers is actually the person who's giving the answers, not making it up.
Point of view,
It's
yeah.
not my interpretation or perception of the
Right.
issue. It's actually coming from,
Yeah, I think that makes things much clearer if we say that. I agree.
So we're going to actually say what?
Are you filling this out for yourself? Are you filling out this survey for yourself?
Yes, no?
Yes or no? If yes, describe your relationship to.
But if no, I mean,
Are you filling this out for yourself? Right. If no, describe your relationship to.
Persons
the-
with disabilities.
the person you're filling it out for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If no, what?
Describe your relationship to the person you are filling this out for.
Yeah, and then put a text box.
But in good grammar.
Person. Okay. If no, describe your relationship to the person for whom you are responding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
So then we'll come down to 5 and do what? We're still gonna try to have a,
Yeah, just yes, no. Get rid of the
just
third.
plain yes, no?
Yeah.
And get rid of the whole caregiver thing?
Yeah, because that's going to be up in question
Okay.
1.
Yeah, that,
And actually, this is good too, because if you say no, like let's say I check number 5, no, I don't consider myself to have a disability. But actually, oh yeah, back in high school I was diagnosed with a learning disability. And, and then like, okay, so then I check that, and like, I don't consider myself to be disabled, but I still have a learning disability. That might be good to know as well. So I wouldn't say, I initially said, if you select no, skip number 6. I think it's good. Maybe number 6 just has another one that's NA.
Okay.
yeah, that makes sense to me too. Yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, someone can have a disability but not consider themselves, not, you know, feel disabled or whatever.
Especially when you include things like learning disability or, also, what is an unseen disability? I didn't know.
Well,
that-
PTSD is an unseen disability.
Okay,
Color blindness is an unseen disability. Chronic pain, those
All
kinds of things.
invisible.
it might, for someone, I'm new to this, so I didn't know if that was unseen, was like, is that common parlance or is that British speak?
No, it's common
Okay.
parlance. And many agencies, groups, whatever, are trying to get it into more popular discussion because in spite of the fact that there are millions of people with physical disabilities in this country, there are far many more with unseen disabilities.
And would a mental health or emotional disability not be an unseen disability? Or is that like, is there a reason why we would call,
I get what you're saying. I think it falls into both. There's a couple.
Well, but it's a check all that apply, right?
Right.
So you don't have to choose,
Just one, yeah.
yeah, between them. Right, like I'm blind, but most people wouldn't know that, right? So that's an unseen physical disability. I also have depression, that would be an unseen mental
So
disability.
you would check two things, right?
What-
Yeah.
What question are we on?
number 6?
Yeah.
Pardon?
Number 6.
Could I just ask about the word
Okay.
tick? Being a new person to this area, is
No,
that
it's weird.
commonly used
Yeah.
here, or is
No,
that a
That's
British?
a
No,
British
it's usually
thing.
Then maybe we
check.
should change
Check.
that
Yeah.
to check instead of tick.
I have no idea what the question was because there
The
were too
word
many people
tick.
talking at the same time.
The word tick is weird. Most people don't use it
Tick
here.
the box.
Right. It's usually check the
Oh,
box. Right.
I
No,
thought
I
maybe that
actually
was
thought
a-
about that too.
I thought that was maybe a New England term that I haven't learned yet.
No.
It's nice, and it makes sense, but it's unfamiliar.
okay.
Yeah, it is unfamiliar.
All right, so I will go through and
Actually,
remove
agree
that
with
word
you, yeah.
and substitute it with check in the entire document.
I'm so very happy.
Find and replace.
Hmm?
Find and replace.
Yep.
So going back to the choices though, the options
For 6.
for number 6.
Okay.
For myself, I would want, if I, without knowing this and without having you guys here to inform me of it, I would be helped by having in parentheses next to unseen disability, i.e. PTSD,
Yeah.
comma, what were the other
Chronic
ones?
pain.
Chronic pain.
Yep.
Actually, sorry.
Or whether or not it makes sense to list those separately.
Actually, I think,
There's so
Okay.
many you
What I would
would
do-
list those.
But
Is it-
at the last statement under question number 6 is if you use an alternative term, please describe here.
yeah, so actually what I would do, actually unseen disability is really not the same type of thing as all the other options. So I would move that to a separate question. I would say like, is your disability apparent, you know, to like a casual observer or not?
And why would we want that as a separate question as opposed to just putting i.e. PTSD, chronic pain? Yeah.
Because it's in a different category. It's not that it's in the same category as the other option.
I agree it's not, but I don't know if it matters with the answers going forward to put it in a different one. Would it?
But it would just make it less confusing.
Okay, so we would ask a specific question, do you have an unseen disability?
Yeah.
Okay, and getting a yes answer to that would provide us with what information?
Well, it would provide us with the same information, but it would be clearer. It would be less confusing to the
What
person
if
taking
it
it.
was just like, first question, how do you describe your disability? And there's a check mark and then other, and then just other. So, okay, get the major, and then so it's a fill in the blank. It's developmental disability, learning disability, mental health or emotional disability, unseen disability, i.e. PTSD, chronic,
Yeah, I agree. I
Pain.
think it needs to be more specific because
physical
some people-
disability, sensory disability, and then other, fill in the blank.
Because it's really important to find out how many people have a disability walking around. We would never know.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they still need some kind of accommodations, and their answers to the other questions would be valuable. But we want to be specific. We don't want somebody to think, well, I have this rash on my body that I can't get rid of as an unseen disability. That's not what we're looking at. So I think adding the recognized unseen disabilities, such as PTSD and the others. And the other thing I was wondering, blind. What category would you fit that in? Or wouldn't that be it's on its own?
Isn't that a sensory disability?
Sensory, blindness is considered a sensory disability.
Right, but
along
is
with
that,
deafness.
I mean, is that common enough that people are going to understand that that's what they would check?
So then under sensory disability, it's i.e. blind or hearing impaired.
I'm thinking that if I'm blind or hearing impaired, I know I have a sensory disability.
You do, but will we be able to use that information at the end when the answers are
Because we won't know
compiled?
which one.
And do we need to know how many people are hearing impaired and how many people are blind?
I don't think so. I don't think we're doing this as I don't think that this survey is going to be rigorous enough to actually get any sort of data as to how many people have these disabilities. I think we're doing a general like, who are you, what's your disability, and how does your disability affect your public day-to-day interactions in the world? And we're getting a sense of it. We're not getting, there are, based off of 50 responses that we estimate that there's 3,000 people in the city with disability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, I just don't think we're gonna have enough.
Right.
If we want to figure out actually how many people have disabilities, we gotta look at census records, like there needs to be much more
yeah.
broad.
We would need to do a lot more work if we wanted to get everyone's like specific condition.
So I'm comfortable with just these categories as long as
Yeah.
I would just put in after unseen, physical and sensory, i.e., and just list 2 or 3 of the most common to get people to think, again, like myself, like being diagnosed with a learning disability, I don't consider myself disabled,
Right,
but seeing it as a checkbox, I'd be like, oh, right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would still move unseen to another question.
I don't see how having it as a separate question is going to provide us with any more information or any better information than just having it as a checkbox.
It wouldn't, but it would be,
Then why do it?
clearer. It would be clearer how to answer it.
I think it could possibly make it more confusing.
And it would allow us to actually define unseen disability in it.
I don't think that's what we need to do here.
How about just
People
moving?
who have unseen disabilities are very aware of the fact that they have a disability that may not be visible.
They are, but are we? That's what I'm looking at.
Why do you as a citizen?
Yeah, as walking down the street, I encounter somebody who's walking with a dog that's kind of friendly, and you want to pet it, but that dog belongs to the person who has PTSD. It's a
Service animal.
service dog, service animal that you're not supposed to touch. It's that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily. Are we doing this survey for the disabled people, or are we doing it for the other people around them?
So,
We're doing this survey so that we can try to gain information that will help us plan for the future of this city.
Mhm.
So how will having unseen disability in a different place help you when you encounter somebody who you may or may not think has PTSD and you may or may not know has a service animal?
Well, one thing, when I suggested moving it, if you move it just to the end of that list, that kind of sets it off a little bit. And, I mean, it's still part of the list, but it would be the last thing that you would look at.
So like I'm sorry.
But then what I'm saying is that we do need to know how many people have an unseen disability that we need to be aware of as planners, as people who are going to recommend changes to rules and laws, etc.
Well, but I would say that, learning disability, mental health, emotional disability, and sensory disabilities can all be unseen disabilities.
Right.
Yes, that's why I think
So,
it should be separate.
well, I think what we have here is we have a couple of broad categories in this question, and we have a couple of specific responses.
Right.
So I think that the choices that are in there right now are confusing to this group because we see there's general categories of disabilities, and then there are also a few specific disabilities. And obviously we're not going to capture every single specific possible disability. And I think this question is really asking about what general group of disability do you have, right?
Right.
It is very
But-
helpful to have you here.
Yeah,
No,
but
you're
look,
great.
every other
We're hired.
other option is a type of disability, except unseen, which is just a property of a disability. It's not a type of disability.
Well, the other
But
thing
it's also,
is,
but it is, I mean, it is, if what Jim was saying is that this is a term that is a new term for a type of category. It's not just a characteristic. Do people know that you have this disability? But it's also it's a category of disabilities that is catching on in prominence. Then it is something that we want to include.
They usually say invisible disability. This is the first time I've ever seen it worded as unseen. I usually hear invisible, but it
Okay.
means the same. I'm just saying, because you said you hadn't heard of it before.
I don't have a problem with changing the word unseen.
Oh no, I don't care. she hasn't heard of it before.
But yeah, you're right. You're unseen, and I think probably, I don't know, I think it's about a 50-50 deal. I think unseen is coming.
Unseen/invisible.
We were just talking about people
it's
reading
just,
it and
or it's just,
recognizing
again,
it.
going back to, I'm sorry, what Kathy said, if you move unseen to the last checkbox and it becomes other unseen or invisible disability, and then
Okay.
other, please describe.
Yeah, but, or you could have the next question be, my disability is not apparent to the casual observer. And then you don't have to worry about whether someone's heard the term or not.
I gotta go in a few minutes.
Hmm?
I gotta go in a few minutes. I have
So
no-
we want to change that statement to my disability is invisible to the casual observer? Is that what you're?
No, my suggestion is that it be a separate question, and that, right, where someone can say it's yes, no.
You can also fit that into number 7. How does this disability cause you to feel?
Uh-huh.
And you could have an option that says, people don't, I feel, that it's, other people don't see me as disabled. Or other
Oh,
people
yeah.
do see me as disabled, like, and then that might get to your, people
Right.
don't see my disability, because it's,
So.
Yeah.
But I'm
we
sorry,
then-
I'm sorry, that's, we're still on question number 6. I don't want to bring us to
No,
number
that's
7.
okay.
I just wanted to say that
But-
maybe Eli's point about.
Okay, but if we're going to have something in number 7 that identifies my disability is invisible to the casual observer,
Well, that's just how it makes you
do we
feel.
need it in two
Yeah.
places?
Well,
Yes.
no, my point is that
Questions.
in question 6, one option is clearly totally unlike the other options, and so it doesn't make sense to have it in there. That if we want to know that, we should put it in another question.
How would you describe PTSD, chronic pain?
Well, you know, PTSD is a mental health issue.
Right.
Chronic pain is a physical disability.
And
And yet, it's,
color blindness is a sensory disability.
Sensory.
Yeah,
So then maybe unseen is not a category that we need in this question number 6.
that's what I'm saying.
well, okay. And then add something to number 7, as a feeling, or see, well, you know,
Well, there is a place right here, if you use an alternative term, maybe we could reword that, but under question 6, if somebody has something that isn't in this list, that's where they can put it.
Right,
and
but
that's
this is-
why the last thing there says, if you use an alternative term,
Right.
please describe it here.
Right, but that's, the issue is not whether it's in the list, because it's in all of the other options. It's a different type of, it's a totally different category than the other options.
What is
So what is
Unseen
unseen
disability.
disabilities?
It's not that it's
visible
yeah.
versus not, yes. I get it.
Okay, I think we should end here. Since Jamie has to go. Yeah,
Sorry.
there's no way that we're gonna stay here all day to get the whole thing done. so.
Do we have a time limit to get this done?
No, we
No.
would just like it done, you know,
Yeah, sometime, but.
before the
there's-
next ice age.
But there's no,
There's no deadline on it, no. Okay,
When's our next meeting?
and the next meeting will be on the first Tuesday of next month, at 10 a.m.
but your committee, will you meet again to do some more work on this? Your subcommittee?
Well, you know, I would say that since there's been this much discussion, maybe we need to go through the whole thing again. Do you want to do that, or just keep coming back to having the full committee?
Has the subcommittee gone through the?
The
Yes.
subcommittee went through it, and I thought we were done.
Well,
Okay. So then I don't think it makes sense to go back to the subcommittee.
Okay.
Yeah.
If the subcommittee worked on it and thinks it was ready for.
But we
full
already
committee
made
review.
considerable changes to
Sure.
it, so.
Yeah, and this is a problem with group work generally, is
Right.
that subcommittees do their work and then bring it to the full committee, and the
Right.
full
Right.
committee
So, okay,
is seeing
so
it for the
then
first
we will-
time and did, so unless the subcommittee thinks, yes, it would be helpful to look at it again, then I would suggest that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea,
Yeah.
we'll just keep bringing it back to the full committee.
I had forgotten that we had left that question unresolved.
Right, right,
We
right.
were arguing about it, and we said, well, let's,
Yeah, you're right.
Table it,
I forgot
yeah.
about that, too.
So unless the subcommittee wants to meet to just figure out how to resolve that question and propose a couple of options.
I think we'll just wait. So we'll take this up again next month.
all right.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
We're still gonna meet over summer, right?
Hmm?
We'll meet over the summer, right? Because last year we didn't, but,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, see you next month.
What's your last name?
What?